two, one. Hello and welcome to the Three Peaks podcast, where we take a break from the hike of life and appreciate its views. Introduction.
Today we are joined with Rob Ferre. Rob Ferre is a DJ, game show host, and a public speaker. He has worked with many big names such as Walt Disney, Universal Studios, and Nickelodeon. Rob, welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you for bringing me on. Now, to get things started, a lot of people have always tried to figure out how to say my last name, so I'm going to help you.
All right,
it is
awesome.
Ferre, as
Hooray.
in hip hop. Ferre. Oh, do you remember that? It's an old song from the 90s. Hip hop Ferre. Oh, that's how I always let people remember that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
that's
Well, thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us.
No problem.
All right. So we got a couple of questions for you, and we were wondering if you'd like to answer them.
Yes, for sure.
All right.
So our first question we have for you is, what made you want to be a DJ?
So it's interesting. I never sought out to ever be a DJ. Now, I'll tell you this because it goes back all the way to my childhood. I always liked being in front of audiences. I always liked performing on stages. And being a DJ is just a different opportunity to perform, to entertain, and be in front of audiences. So I graduated from college in 2003. I moved to Walt Disney World in hopes of doing something fun and something unique and working with them. When I first got there, I had a job working in the parking lot at MGM Studios. Not a very great job, but I found my mentor at that time. I performed at a talent show, and I did this silly magic show. And after that silly magic show, I met Elliot Hansen, who took me under his wing and taught me the ways of being an interactive DJ. Because he saw something in me. He saw this talent. But I also did DJing in college, but that was radio DJing. And so if we really want to get into the nuances of what DJs are, there's lots of different types of DJs. You have your radio DJs. You have your festival DJs. You have your club DJs. When I say festival DJs, these are the people who are like Avicii or Calvin Harris, Cascade. And you also have DJs who are producer DJs and things like that. Dr. Dre started as a DJ, right?
Oh.
And then he moved into it. There's so many people. Little John, yeah, he is a DJ, right? So many of these performing artists are still DJing, right? And then you have what I do. I'm what we call a mobile DJ. A mobile DJ has all the equipment. They go to the event. They set it all up. We do school dances. We do bar mitzvahs. We do weddings. We do all these type of events. And so I'm the type of performing DJ who goes to events and sets it all up. And so I started my journey back in Orlando, Florida, working at Universal Studios, DJing in the theme park. And then I moved back to Utah 15 years ago, and I started my business. And here we are today.
that's great.
That's amazing. And you said that you also worked at Universal as a DJ. What type of shows would you put on there for like the kids or something for the guests to like jam out and party to?
That's exactly correct. So the first job I had was at Universal Studios. There's a ride called Men in Black. And the line would get so long. This is when it first opened, probably about a year after it opened. The line would get so long, it would wind outside. And it would wind outside, and I would be set up outside under a canopy or a covering, and people would be waiting outside just bored. And so what I would do is I would entertain them as they waited in line, and they would zigzag back and forth. But the great thing about that job was I would get a new group of people every 30 minutes because they would eventually cycle out, right? And then I have a whole new group of people, and I could still work on some of my jokes, my bits, and then also experiment. And so that was how it all started. A lot of DJs get started by maybe doing like a school dance or working in a club. my club, my platform, my stage was working in the theme parks. And so, and then we did a variety of things. We also would do downtown Disney, which is now called Disney Springs. And then I worked at the Nickelodeon Hotel. It's no longer there. I mean, the hotel's still there, but it's no longer themed Nickelodeon. But I would work as the DJ for the shows where we would slime kids. And that's also where I got my start as a game show host. I was able to learn a lot about hosting game shows. And speaking of game shows, a couple years ago, I worked for the Jazz doing their halftime game shows right before the pandemic. So that was a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So how long have you been doing it? Being a DJ?
So let's say, oh, wow, all the notifications. So I started in 2004. Elliot, who trained me as a DJ, he picked me up out of obscurity, as I call it, and trained me. And so I started in 2004 as a professional DJ. I did some radio DJing. I also DJ'd back in the 90s, in 96, 97, working for the minor league baseball team here in Utah. Back then, they were called the Buzz. They are now the Bees. But I worked in the stadium as a stadium DJ. And my cousin worked for a radio station, and she introduced me to some people at the stadium because she worked there as well. And so I would play music in between batters. I would do music as people would walk up and play the YMCA and get people hyped. Yes. So if we really go all the way back, that's when I started doing it. And to me, I thought this was just a fun job. I didn't really think it would turn into something else. But once again, it goes back to the roots of what I just like to do is perform and play music and keep people entertained. It's all about a form of entertainment and keeping people engaged in music.